I was born in Dogwagon in autumn, on the shores of Gitchigamik, which they now call Lake Superior. The deep winter silence broken by the hush-hush of our snowshoes, following a path of moonlight on the frozen waste, icicles hanging from the roof of our trapping cabin, the northern lights dancing with the stars long after bedtime. Gookum, my grandmother, always sang to me songs of the land, the animals, the lake. And one of her songs had no words, and I asked her why. She told me it was my song, and that someday the words would come to me and I would finish it. I can't sing like she did, but she was right about so many other things. I needed to believe her. We lost my father when I was very young. Gookum says that he was a very kind man, like his father, but we lost them both in the same way, to a darkness hiding in their hearts that was not their fault. I didn't know what she meant by that for many years. All I knew is that I missed my father, and my memory of him faded like old photographs in the album my mother kept in the trapping cabin. I can remember this one hot day in July. He held me up above the breaking waves, and I wasn't frightened. Those waves seemed impossibly tall, but I knew I was safe in his arms, and I was smiling. When something difficult happens, Gookum always reminds me about his teachings, and sometimes she sings me my song. I remember this as if it were a dream. Winter was over. Spring had come and gone. The great white blanket that covered the lake was melted by a mighty breath of wind that came in and out like the tide. Massive chunks of ice grinding away at the granite shoreline, tearing up trees and piling them 30 feet high. Spring was the time of great noise, of life bursting forth and heralding its own arrival with shouts and celebration. The old grass by the lake shore poked through the final remnants of snow, glowing against the blue of the ceaseless waves and the rich golden light of sunset. High summer was quiet by comparison. The poplar leaves sighed if there was wind, but remained silent in the deathly heat when there was no wind. Only the crickets voiced their complaint. The rest of us were wordless, longing for the cool embrace of the waves that would greet us when our day was done. There was a soft breeze, and the poplar leaves were dancing. Gookum and I were driving down Superior Shores, checking our smaller trapline for beaver. There are many ponds that we already know of, but it's always good to find new ones to trap in the fall. A mick, beaver, come and go just as people do. Dust from the red shale of the road kicked up a cloud behind us as we followed a long, straight stretch. Gookum slowed the truck before we reached the end. I was about to ask her why she was stopping when a white wolf stepped out from the brush at the edge of the road. It is rare to see a wolf in the summer. His black eyes pools of immense depth against his white pelt. The truck rolled to a stop, and Gookum said nothing. The wolf stood still for a few seconds, and then turned back and melted into the bush. Neither of us said anything for a long time, but when I glanced over, tears were running down Gookum's cheeks. Mahingan, wolf, reminds me of your Mishomis, your grandfather, she said. He used to say that wolf represents humility and we need to walk as wolf does. He does not walk in selfishness. There is no greater love than to serve the pack, and no greater shame than to think of only yourself. We must learn to walk as wolf does. I am so thankful for this reminder, both of the teachings and of Mishomis. Gookum fell silent. Do you miss him? I asked. Oh, very much, she said. I miss Dad too. Gookum and I walked back to the truck in silence and in gratitude. We do not own this land, but we are thankful to be a part of it. In the autumn, shortly after I turned 11, Mother took me on my first moose hunt. She paddled our canoe south along the lakeshore before the sun had even risen. It was cold. There was no ice yet, but the leaves had mostly fallen and a heavy fog enveloped us. Everything was silent. I could barely hear the sound of Mother's paddle as it rhythmically rose and fell beneath the gray surface of the water. I hardly dared to breathe for fear of breaking the silence and scare off any moose that we might be close to. I focused on tucking my hands deep into my pockets to fend off the chill that settled over me. 10 miles down the rocky shore, we rounded a small peninsula, entering a wide, shallow bay. Around 100 meters off lay a long, thin island. Mother steered the canoe towards it, leaving me on the closest tip. She asked me to wait until she reached the mainland, at which point I would walk the length of the island, hoping a moose would avoid me and wade back to shore. Mother grew smaller as she paddled away. I felt small too, and I felt alone. She waved at me from the far shore, and I took a deep breath. I can do this, I thought. Mother's depending on me. Walking uphill, away from the shore, I entered the thick brush of the island. I soon found a little cabin, long abandoned, the only sign that anyone had ever been here. Following paths worn through the bush by Wawashkashe deer, I made my way along the island. I'd never been there before, but the island was narrow enough that I couldn't get lost. I could see both sides of the lake through the island. The air was damp and still, and the old grass and raspberry canes were heavy laden with dew. I didn't hear anything, not even a bird stirred as I walked along the old spruce and poplar trees. Ahead of me, blocking the path, lay an old dead poplar. I didn't want to crawl underneath for fear of getting myself soaking wet in the dew. I was cold enough already. I lifted 1 foot high onto the rough bark, and I hoisted myself up the rest of the way with the aid of a stick I found lying beside the path. And as I went to step off the other side, there was movement. There was something stirring right in front of me. My heart raced as a large black-brown shape loomed just 5 feet from where I stood. It immediately turned and ran in the opposite direction, disappearing swiftly into the trees only after a few moments of crashing through the bush. The forest started to fall silent again, but I couldn't tell from the pounding of my heart in my ears. I was only halfway along the island, but Mother had asked me to walk its entire length. And then I heard Gookum's voice in my head. She was at home, preparing soup from the tomatoes that we'd harvested from the garden, with a promise of warmth, and it sustained me. Makwa, she said. Makwa represents bravery. Makwa will protect her cubs at all costs, Gookum had told me. And we must live with the same bravery, protect those who are smaller and not as strong as we are, and find a balance between rest, work, and play. Makwa's found that balance. You need to stand up for what is right, no matter what the cost is. I took a moment to breathe and think, eventually realizing that the bear was probably just as startled as I was. Gookum and Mother had always taught me to be one with the land, to respect it, not to fear it. So I took a breath and decided to be brave. After having walked the remainder of the island's length, I returned to the place that Mother had left me, and she paddled over and picked me up. She hadn't seen any moose leave the island, so we paddled further to the bay. I quietly whispered to Mother about my encounter with the bear, and a wide smile split her face into two. She told me that Gookum would be so happy to hear this story, and that she was proud of me for being brave, and I needed to always hold this teaching close to my heart. And then we saw her, a cow moose. We both sat motionless as she let out a powerful, echoing bellow, filling the bay with resonance. After 3 long calls, the cow fell silent. Hardly daring to breathe, we sat motionless, holding onto the cattails to keep the canoe from drifting away. The cow trotted off a little ways and stood still. After a few moments of silence, a rhythmic splashing emerged from the fog, and the largest bull moose I'd ever seen slowly walked into view. The cow went to join it and disappeared into the thick brush at the water's edge. Mother raised her rifle, the shot echoing for miles as the bull went down. She paddled us over, and we offered a sema, giving thanks to the Creator and thanks to the moose for this gift of his life. We would come back later with Gookum before the tide came in, and we would use our larger boat to tow the moose home. It'll be a lot of work, but we could do it together, and using the tide, we could get that moose home. But most importantly, thanks to Creator and the gift of this moose, we would eat well during the long winter ahead, along with our family and friends.
It is February. The lake has long since frozen over. The color from the forest replaced with ghostly white and dull aching gray. Dull aching gray.
Mother sent me outside to think since I lied to her about something that happened at school. I just started high school. I don't have many friends. I'm doing okay, but I feel lonely. And I have a deep sadness about this place. And the other kids, they don't want to be there either, and they're angry about something. 5 communities gathering in one school, the whole region comes together, but none of these groups seem to mix perfectly. I don't feel like I have anything to be angry about, and I don't know why they're so angry, but it's there. There's this one kid that keeps bothering me. He pretends to shove me in the hallway and to scare me off, and he and his friends laugh about it. Well, today, he did push me, and I pushed him back. Of course, the teacher saw me, and I was the one who got in trouble. And when I got home, Mother asked me if anything had happened, and I said no. But she knew already. We had a long talk about it, and then she asked me to spend some time outside. I bundled up as best as I could. It was far below freezing, around minus 25 Celsius, but it gets colder than that. But cold is cold. Walking the lake shore through the old cedar swamp, I make my way across the 300 meters of ice to our small island. I love going here. And once I reach the island, I walk right beside the domed granite walls that take up most of the length. The sky glows intensely red, yet impossibly cold. Now, there are a few birds pecking away at a frozen hide in the ice. 2 large eagles sit at one end, unbothered by the many crows who timidly swoop and caw, hoping for a chance at the food. One of the black birds is larger than the rest, and I can tell from its size, the width of its beak, and the shape of its tail, that it's a raven. For a little while, I just sit and watch it. It doesn't seem to be bothered by the crows. My anger melts away. I know I shouldn't have lied to Mother, and I wish that I hadn't. I was just so embarrassed, and I didn't want to get into trouble. A great echoing crack reverberates along the ice of the bay, shattering the air and waking me from my gentle reverie. I stand up and head home. The crows and the eagles fly off. The raven stays. As I turn to retrace my steps, I think I catch a glimpse of a man far in the back of the trees, wearing fur? He's very large, and the furs are very black. For some reason, I don't feel afraid. He disappears into the trees, and I trudge home through the failing light. I didn't feel any fear, but I can't stop myself from occasionally glancing backwards towards the island. I tell Mother and Gookum about what I saw as the wood stove quickly thaws my numb hands, feet, and cheeks. They burn painfully as my blood begins to flow. Gookum smiles and tells me that maybe I saw Sabe. I asked her, "Who's Sabe?" And she says, "You would know him by the name Bigfoot." I laugh, but Gookum remains serious. And after a long moment of silence, she speaks. Sabe can live in the physical world and the spirit world. He can do so because he knows who he is in his spirit, body, and mind. And since he knows his whole self and is true to who he is, he can move between the worlds. His gift is the ability to go between the spirit world and the physical world, and he honors that gift. He does not allow anyone to see him who does not have that same honesty of themselves. So if you are honest with yourself, you might catch a glimpse of him. So few people have been honest with themselves, so he's rarely been seen. You told me that you saw this man when you gave up your anger, and when you were honest with yourself? That sounds to me like you saw Sabe. We must all walk with this honesty, and we must use what we've been given to do good and to live in truth, rather than pretending to be something we are not. I know then that Mother was not upset that I hadn't told her I pushed somebody, but that I reacted in a way that was not true to myself and that I had lied to her. So I apologized to them both and promised to stay true to me. Nearly a year has passed. It's November and I'm in grade 10. A cold wind tosses old, wet leaves and settles into your bones, but there isn't much snow on the ground. I've been taken out of school for a week to help out on the trap line. We usually set the traps in October, but Gookum hasn't been feeling well. She coughs a lot, and sometimes Mother argues with her about it when they think I'm sleeping. Gookum insists that she's fine, but this is the first time we set the traps this late. We'll stay out on the trap line for an entire week, sleeping in the shack that my Mishomis built by Shillabear Creek. We have nearly 50 miles of road to set, plus several old logging roads that have grown over with young brush. It's a lot of work. Not only are there many beaver ponds here, but we also have to set for other animals, such as martens, wolves, lynx. At least we can use the truck for most of it. The days are a lot longer when we have to use the snow machine. We get up at 6 a.m., and we won't be back until well after dark. We stop at each marten box along the road. There's nothing to show where they are, but Gookum knows where they are, and Mother knows where they are. I remember some of them from time to time, but I remember the beaver ponds much more easily. Around 10 a.m., we finish setting our first beaver pond. Before we head back to the truck, Gookum asks me to sit beside her on an old fallen log. She begins to speak, but immediately starts coughing. I lean in closer when she stops, laying my head on her shoulder. Look at this pond, child. Tell me, what do you see? I see a dam built of mud, sticks, and rocks. What else? She asks. I see the feed pile out in the deep water where the beaver will go after the pond freezes over. I see a poplar lodge close by. Anything else? She asks. I see a pond where there didn't used to be one. That's about it, I guess. Oh, and the slides that they use to drag the logs down to the water. I can see fresh mud and newly peeled saplings, which tell me that the beavers are very active here. The wood on the stumps have been chewed down, and they're all white, so they must have been chewed recently. Good, my child. You remember many things that we taught you. I see all those same things, but what they tell me is that we must walk in wisdom. Beaver has changed his environment and built this little ecosystem here that benefits so many species. He stored up enough food for winter and built the dam tall enough that he and his family can survive for the winter. Many smaller animals, like muskrat, will also live here, as well as minnows and small fish. The pond is large enough to sustain them all. Beaver has a shrewd mind, and he uses his natural gifts not only to preserve his own life, but to change the world around him, and in doing so, to help so many others. Beaver's also a teacher of wisdom because of his teeth. His teeth keep growing, and by using them, they get stronger. When he does not use them, his teeth will eventually kill him, as they will grow and grow and grow until they puncture him. Like Beaver, if we use our own skills, our gifts in life, and exercise them with honor, we'll lead a good life If we don't, like Beaver, not using our gifts will lead us down a path of destruction. Now more than ever, we must walk in this way. Gookum pauses for a long time. There's no easy way to say this, child. But a darkness has settled over this land. Over the last few years, children have gone missing in the city. And sometimes they're found, but others it's too late. I heard on the radio last night that a body was found in the river. I don't tell you this to scare you, but because you must know the little world around you is changing and growing and widening and deepening. We've sheltered you from this knowledge, not to keep you in the dark, but first to teach you the ways of Mishomis and how he saw the world. The ways in which we can walk to best counteract this darkness, this mistreatment of our people. The way forward is through the 7 grandfather teachings. Don't you mean Mishomis' teachings, I ask? Oh, child, your Mishomis was a wise man, but he didn't come up with these teachings on his own. Our people, the Anishinaabe people, as well as many other nations, have taught these things for longer than we can remember. Our teachings were taken from us, but we didn't forget them. I tell you the teachings as if they were Mishomis' alone because he was a man that I knew who lived them best. You see, it doesn't matter where they come from. What matters is that they allow us to live in harmony with ourselves and with others. I can see your Mishomis as well as your father in you. I loved them both, and I miss them dearly. If I can choose to accomplish one thing in this life, it will be for you to remember the teachings. We took Gookum to the hospital and they ran some tests. But whenever I ask her about it, she says she's fine. Her cough hasn't gotten any better. It's summer now. Before the sun rose this morning, we drove onto the trap line to go fishing. Even though we live right beside Lake Superior, we know the smaller lakes and streams better, so we choose to go there. The day was warm and we spent hours drifting in a small lake overlooked by Eagle Mountain. Mother always jokes that I should climb up it and they'll pick me up on the other side. Someday I might. I stare at the red stone cliffs and dream every time we come here, letting the friendly sun lull me into a state of half asleep. After we catch enough pickerel for the 3 of us to eat for a few days, we turn the boat around and head back towards the landing. Large dragonflies and slender blue damselflies flit about the reeds as we pull into shore, minnows darting in and out of the shade beneath the surface. We go as far as we can, the shallow water preventing us from bringing the boat all the way in. I step out of the boat first, onto an old log lodged in the mud. I'm always afraid I'm going to slip off, but it's never happened. Once all 3 of us are on the log, we pull the boat the rest of the way in. It's small enough that Mother and I can lift it onto the back of the truck. Gookum doesn't help this time. After a very bumpy ride through ruts of the old logging road, we reach the main road. Turning right, we head for home. The sun is still hot and fairly high in the sky, but it's beginning to sink towards the horizon. After 15 minutes or so of driving, we see a small, dark shape by the side of the road. We stop, a cloud of red dust catching up with us. I climb out of the truck after the dust has settled. The dark shape is a turtle. I've never seen one up here before. I pick it up, its dark shell hot in the sun, and turning it over, I'm surprised to see the bright orange patterns molted into its belly. Mother tells me it's a painted turtle. Gookum smiles, and I ask her, "Does turtle remind you of Mishomis?" And she winks at me. Mesquates, turtle, represents truth, my child. She was here during creation, and she carries that truth on her back. That's why we call this land Turtle Island. Even the land carries the truth on its back. The honesty of Sabe is one way we must live. The truth of Mesquates extends so much deeper. We must understand the importance of what we do and how we do things. This is truth, to understand why we are here. The circles on Turtle's back never change. She has 13 big circles on her back, like the 13 full moons in a year. And she has 28 small circles around the 13 circles, marking each day between each moon cycle. The circles never ever change, and they reflect the world around her. The story told on her back stays true to this world, and she carries that truth through centuries and centuries and centuries. If we tell the truth, our story never changes. But when we lie, we have to make up another lie to cover the first lie, and then another and another and another, and eventually the story falls apart. But if we keep truth in our hearts, like Turtle, our story will stay consistent, and our truth will positively reflect the world around us. You must be true to yourself, you must be true to the land, and you must be true to others. September is cold this year. The leaves have turned yellow, and the cold rains have caused so many of them to fall. Gookum has asked me to stay home from school today. It's Friday, and we're headed up to the trap line. Gookum says we're going to stay up at the shack for the whole weekend. It's too early to be setting the traps, but I don't mind missing school, so I don't complain. We drive up to the shack and spend the morning cleaning out old drawers and dusting. I pull a stack of old photographs from underneath the dresser in the bedroom, and we decide to go through them. They're all family photos, mostly from before I was born. One photo is of Mishomis, and in the background stands a buffalo. I jokingly tell Gookum that I already know this can't be one of Mishomis' teachings since buffalo don't live here. Gookum smiles and laughs. Oh, but my child, it is. But how can our people have a teaching about buffalo if they've never even lived here? Our people didn't just live by the Great Lakes. We stretched all the way to Manitoba, and buffalo lived there too. And even if they hadn't, we must remember that it doesn't matter where the teachings come from. As I told you before, other peoples have the same teachings as we do. There are some differences, but at the heart of them all lies this respect for life, and buffalo represents that respect. Bijike always respected our need to survive and gave his life to sustain our people. He understands the need for balance, for sharing with others, and living in harmony. We build a small fire after we finish cleaning, and we sit together, warming up our hands. Gookum is wrapped in an old blanket, and we spend the rest of the weekend visiting her favorite lakes and streams, fishing at a few of them, enjoying the weather, which has turned a little warmer. We stay up late into the night, playing cards by the wood stove and laughing together. Gookum passed into the spirit world just a few short days later. The remainder of high school passed in a gray blur. I graduated, but I didn't do as well as I wanted. I felt numb. I no longer found joy in anything. I simply went through the motions of living, carrying a deep emptiness within. Summer passed the same way, and an anger seeped into my bones. I hardened myself to protect the parts within. I felt nothing when I moved to the city to start university. The first month passed, and I hardly remember any of it. It's October now, and Mother's taking me back to the city after Thanksgiving, and I don't want to go. Static curtains of 2 radio announcers come on the radio as we drive through the first few hills that lie just outside my hometown. They're laughing and joking about how much turkey they ate over the weekend. I really could care less how much turkey they ate. But my ears perk up at the next words. Oh yeah, did you hear another Indigenous kid was found? At first, I don't understand, but the next few lines hammer the realization into me. My hearing starts to cut in and out of the shock of their clinically detached delivery as the callous shift back to jovial on-air banter continues. I don't hear anything of what they're saying anymore, but I hear the laughter, and I think, do you even know what you just said? Mother sighs heavily, pulling the truck into the short road that leads to Boker Slough. We walk past the train tracks, across the pipeline and into the woods. There's a small wooden bridge which crosses a creek not more than 5 feet across. I see small speckled trout in the water, little more than minnows. I hear a ruffed grouse drumming somewhere in the hills. A few drops of rain begin to fall. I pause on the bridge, the voices of the announcers hammering the inside of my skull. Another one. I need some time. Face down. Mother says my name and hands me an envelope. Gookum asked me to give this to you, she says. I drop my hands to my sides. I'm unable to take it. She comes closer, and something inside of me breaks. I snatch the envelope from her, and I start to run up the trail. The rain grows heavier as I climb up the steepening hill. Another one. Face down. The sun's gone down, and the soil on the trail is growing slick with mud. Another one. My path becomes so steep that at some points I need to use my hands to keep from slipping back down the hill. I run on anyways, heedless of any of the injuries my body is collecting. Another one. Face down. The trail winds up some granite domes. I hop over fallen logs, scratching my legs on the dried out branches. At one point, I scrape my shin on a sharp flake of rock and blood starts pouring and seeping into my socks. So sad. Another one. At last, I reach the highest point of the hill. I'm out of breath, my lungs are burning, my legs are stinging with the pain of the sweat that leaked into my fresh cuts. Another one. Face down. I burst between 2 old pines, catching myself just before the edge of a fall. I don't know how long I've been running. I'm shaking. I can barely stand. And I scream into the wind, into the rain. I am alone! Falling to my knees, I sob quietly with my head bowed down. I don't know how long I sit this way, but Mother softly comes up behind me and puts her arms around my shoulders. The rain lessens, the wind suddenly dies, and we sit there in silence for a few moments. As I raise my head, the sun breaks through the clouds, illuminating the golden poplars and the red maples that blanket the hillsides. From here, I can see all the way to Nanabuju, the sleeping giant. And suddenly, I think of Gookum. And I whisper in a hoarse voice, Mother, what is the final teaching? Gookum always told me that there were 7, but I can only remember 6. She tells me to open the letter. Eagle alights on an old white pine as I fumble with the envelope. I unfold the paper and begin to read the shaky writing. I miss you, my child, as I'm sure that you miss me. I'm sorry I didn't have time to finish the teachings. And right now, you are probably afraid and angry. Ninasitatan, I understand. But don't be afraid. You are ready. We have taught you all you need to know, and now you are no longer a child, though I will always see you as our little girl. You're a woman now. I wish we had more time together, and for the time that we did have, I'm grateful. But since we didn't, I'll give you the final teaching here. The final teaching is love, and is represented by Migize, eagle, who is the only animal with the strength to carry all of the teachings. Of all of the beasts, great and small, he's able to fly closest to Creator. His heart of love underlies all the other teachings. Eagle is also love because he can see through the water to the very bottom of the lake. Such a strong vision. Being able to love somebody truly is to be able to see past the surface and love them for who they are in their heart and in their soul, not for what they look like on the surface. To walk in love is to walk with all the teachings. I love you, my child, and I'm so proud of you. You're never alone. If you remember Mishomis's teachings, then he and I will always be with you, as will your mother and your father. Return to the forest often, for it too will remind you of these things. Be one with the land, live in harmony with it, and with all of the animals. Tears fall freely down my cheeks as I fold the letter up and return it to the envelope. The final teaching was love, I say. Mother says nothing, but she smiles at me and wraps her arms around my shoulders from behind. I take a deep breath. I wipe the tears from my cheeks. Looking out once more, I see Eagle spread his wings and begin to soar over the land that I love so much. This land that is my home. I see my life spreading out before me as the forest rolls away into the distant blue. Somehow, I don't feel afraid. Eagle circles higher on a gentle wind as Mother and I descend the hill, and I can hear Gookum's voice in my heart as I begin to sing the song that she said was mine. Shy-Anne